Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hi, it's me, Egbert, E-G-G-B-U-R-T, the owner of this radio station. I invite everyone to listen, no matter if you're young, old, black, white, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, heck, I even want real estate agents listening to my station. Yes, even Rick and Tracy. You're all welcome. Now, it's back to my Goodwill ambassadors, Brad and John.
My computer glitched there, so I just redid that. I'm sorry. Okay, this is the Brad and John Show on the website bjshow.co. If you go to bjshow.co, you can go down, find a little blinking banner. You'll see the very attractive-looking Egbert guy. Click on his nose. You can stream the show live. You can also find that same banner, which is on the egbert.com site, and that's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. John, are you familiar with what happened yesterday with Deadspin, the website?
Oh, yeah. How about this, right? A lot of good conservatives and libertarians taking a victory lap, dancing on the grave of Deadspin here.
Well, here's the bizarre story, and I read this, and there's maybe a big picture angle to this thing. Yesterday, it was announced that the company that owns Deadspin, which is G/O Media, they're the parent company, the Deadspin was sold. And matter of fact, the sale was consummated yesterday, and the CEO of the parent company G/0, I don't know why it's G with a /O. That's the name of the company. They fired everybody. They just essentially said, "You're all gone. Bye. See you later."
And it's a British company that bought them, right?
Yes. Now, the interesting thing about it is that if you go to Deadspin right now, there's still stuff on there. So apparently they've already hired new people or they've taken over. And what's interesting is if I go there right now, it used to be on all the bylines. Here we go there right now. On the bylines, it actually gave you the name of the person that wrote the story. Now, if you go into the story, it says by Field Level Media. So I don't know who Field Level Media is.
Wow. And by the way, of course they're going to leave that content up because think of how high Deadspin ranks in names of, in search engine optimization. Think of how much ad money they get every day coming in there.
Well, plus there's guys like me who've never gone to that site or have never gone to it in a long time who are now going, is it gone? Did they turn it off?
They're checking them out. And I remember, I lived through, we all did. I lived through Deadspin's heyday, and I would go to Deadspin 3-4 times a day. You probably went to jalopy.com a few times a day.
I didn't. I wasn't into those. No, I never did those kind of sites. But here's the interesting thing, and this is an article on CNN that talks about slashing of Deadspin staff is the latest in what has so far been a tumultuous year for news media. Okay, get this. In the first 3 months of 2024 alone, The Messenger has shut down. BuzzFeed cut 16% of its remaining staff. Vice Media laid off hundreds of employees as it ceased to publish on its website. Time laid off 15% of its unionized editorial staff. Los Angeles Times cut over 20% of its newsroom staff. Condé Nast staffers walked off the job protesting layoffs, and staffers at the New York Daily News and Forbes staged a walkout. Things suck in journalism. So all you kids out there who thinking like, if you're going like, wow, that Brad, I idolize him. He's got 2 journalism degrees. He's the best guy in the world. Let me tell you right now, it sucks. My degrees are worthless. Don't go into journalism because nobody practices journalism anymore. It's dead. And when you get George Stephanopoulos, who is quote unquote a journalist, George Stephanopoulos is a journalist like I'm an Olympic athlete. And trust me.
That's what I say. Like Ahmaud Arbery was a jogger, Brad.
Right. I ain't that. Once again, anybody nowadays, and even to the point where Fox News, all the people on there, most of the people on Fox News are attorneys. You go through the whole thing. What's Shannon Bream? By the way, I have to tell you something. I don't think there is a person on TV that talks any faster than Shannon Bream. That woman can talk at a speed that's faster than a speeding bullet.
Would I know her if I saw her, Brad? Oh yeah, I just pictured her. Yeah, I know exactly who she is. She looks like version 2.0 of Megyn Kelly.
She is, yeah, exactly. She's sharp as a tack. She is a very sharp woman. She's an attorney. I'm telling you, get accused sometimes of talking fast. That gal could she could. You remember the old FedEx commercial? Was, "They got to talk real fast."
Oh yeah,
I mean,
and he also did the Micro Machines ads. Remember those?
Right. Shannon Bream could talk him, under the table. Just right away. So anyway, Deadspin's bought by an English company. Now, the bizarre part of it is one of the things they say, and this brings it home a little bit. I'm going to do two Kansas City Chiefs stories here in a row here. One of the things that got Deadspin in trouble was one of the writers wrote and did the screen grab of the kid that had the black face and the Indian headdress. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. That was the nail in the coffin for Brad.
Yeah,
for Deadspin.
They
right?
sued Deadspin. But the interesting thing was, if you took there was a shot of him taken from the side, and his face was black. But if you looked at him from the front, half of his face was black, half his face was red, which is the colors of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the interesting part of the story was that this guy, what was his name? Here, we need to bring him out. I can't find the name. The reporter, he went into it where he made fun of him.
Okay, yeah, but we know.
Okay,
it was a reporter.
Okay, so he made fun of the kid, and what was interesting was the Chiefs have essentially told fans they're not allowed with face paint, they're not allowed with headdresses in the stadium anymore. But the interesting part of this was how this kid ended up with the face paint and the headdress. I believe he was in Las Vegas. His parents took him to the Kansas City Chiefs on the road where he was in Las Vegas, and he's like 9 years old, and the Deadspin writer, made fun of him because he was making fun of Native Americans. And then it came out, guess what this kid is? A Native American.
Yeah. But again, the facts don't matter, Brad. If you have a narrative, then you write the story, and then you have your narrative match whatever visual. And you know what? If you're black and you look at that, you're like, oh, that's just horrible. Or you're any sort of BIPOC, Brad. Then you could look at that and be like, oh, look at this entitled, privileged white boy.
Well, it's like we talked about, and that story sort of disappeared from the headlines, but the news reporter or the anchor who read the story about colored people, and the NAACP went nuts, even though the NAACP, their initials are National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and yet the guy from the NAACP spokesman, when he referred to this, he's talked about it was a slight against people of color. I'm going like, okay, let's take colored people.
And while we're talking about slights, Brad, real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that St. Louis Public Radio, St. Louis on the Air, I have the link up today. St. Louis Diaper Bank is talking about how they're moving, not just they do not just diapers, but also menstrual products. You know who they give those products to, Brad?
Who's that?
Young people with periods. Not women, not girls, but you give menstrual products to, quote, young people with periods. Now, why can't they say the name women? Why can't they say girls?
Well,
because, Brad, in 2024, according to the St. Louis Public Radio style book, anybody can menstruate. If you try hard enough, Brad, and you believe, you can menstruate.
Well, John, I was just going to say they won't give them to me because I'm not young.
Well, that's true. Now, but remember, I had this exact conversation, and I won't name the company, but there might be a company we've discussed who's laying off a whole lot of people under the name of a euphemism. And guess what? They're offering packages first to people over 50, Brad, allegedly, and we won't say the name of the company. And I told this friend of mine, I said, remember, you can discriminate against people by age as long as you don't discriminate based on color or fluidity or whatever, Brad.
Well, I agree. I mean, to the point where I get discriminated all the time. I went down to the Cardinals the other day and knocked on the door down there at the stadium. I say, hey, I want to pitch for you guys. And they said, you're too old. And they slammed the door on me. I mean,
and they told you could be DH. So they carved out a DH spot for you. But you can't pitch, Brad.
Here's another Kansas City Chiefs story. And this is a story. I don't know if you've heard this before. I saw this last week and I saw it again yesterday. I thought to myself, man, this is not good. I'll read you the headline. Kansas City Chiefs fans that suffered frostbite at fourth coldest game in NFL history now face possibility of amputation. Do you know this story?
That's right. And I don't mean to interrupt, Brad, but everybody should go to Tony'sKansasCity.com. Tony's been all over the amputation story. And also his headline today, Brad, is critics celebrate Deadspin layoffs after Kansas City Chiefs fan blackface controversy. So go to Tony'sKansasCity.com and they have all the stories. Tony has all the stories there about amputation. Can you imagine standing outside, Brad, for a sporting event and ended up you have to tell your grandkids that your body that you're an amputee because you went to a Chiefs game?
Well, that's the bizarre part of this story is you think they call it the fourth coldest game in NFL history. And there's one quote, I read this article, the guy said he was out in the parking lot and he was doing, tailgating, and he only had his gloves off for like 5 minutes. And frostbite. Now, here's the crazy thing about this is my father, World War II vet, was in, and I've never been able to exactly find this out because my dad didn't talk about this kind of stuff, but I believe that my father was involved in the Battle of the Bulge. If you know what the Battle of the Bulge was, it was a huge, near the end of World War II when the Germans looked like they were pretty much in retreat. The Germans, mounted a tremendous offensive, and they called it the Battle of the Bulge because the Americans had them pretty much, the battle line kept moving back toward Germany, and this was in France, and all of a sudden the Germans counterattacked, and the line bulged. That's what we call it, Battle of the Bulge. And it was the winter, and a lot of the American GIs did not have the proper footwear, they didn't have the proper socks and things like that. My dad had frostbite from World War II. Whether it was from Battle of the Bulge, I don't know. And my dad, to the day he died, had very limited feeling, and the older he got, it got worse. He had very, very limited feeling in his toes, and at one point in time, before my dad did pass away, he had his leg amputated because of the fact that this was all, sort of accumulative from this World War II thing. Well, these fans in Kansas City, this game happened, what was it, January 6th or something like that? It's been like... Yeah,
I got Tony's post up now. It was, not sure exactly what day it was.
Okay, but... So what's happened is these people have gotten to the point where what happens is your fingers, and mainly it's fingers and toes, your fingers start to turn colors. And what happens is the blood vessels in your extremities, typically your fingers, and sometimes you can get frostbite in your ears, on your ears, your nose, anything that is like an extremity that is not normally, somewhat shielded by the rest of your body, or that you don't have a coat on and stuff like that. And you lose the circulation in those parts of your bodies, your fingers, your toes, sometimes your hands or feet, and they have to amputate them. And we're not talking like one or two, we're talking possibly into the low hundreds of people that are going to have at least some amputation of maybe one or two fingers or a toe or something like that. I'm thinking to myself, that's crazy.
First of all, what a great story to tell friends of why you lost a body part. The game was January 13th.
January 13th.
And one of my favorite things that Tony does is he'll do a playlist, Brad. So here's the playlist that went along with these stories. Sheryl Crow's The First Cut is the Deepest. Bryan Adams, Cuts Like a Knife. And my favorite of this list, which is Harvey Danger's Flagpole Sitta. There's a line in there where he goes, "You cut off my legs now, I'm an amputee, bleep, bleep you." Anyway, go to Tony's Kansas City and you'll read all the amputation stories.
I mean, now, I'm going to say something, and I know this is I'm sort of making fun of this, but how quick do you think in Kansas City radio you're going to hear like, "Hi, this is Terry Crouppen. If you went to that Kansas City Chiefs game..."
And hey, you know what? There's a certain law firm out here that's related to a certain former state senator that should be doing a little advertising. Now, the best advertising that people could do leading up to the April election, what would you recommend, Brad, to people? If you're a candidate out there, you're driving to and from Jeff City today, wherever you are, and you want to get some radio ads, but you don't really know where to start, where should people go?
Well, John, you would go to aprilelection.com. That's where you go.
What is it? No, repeat that for me. I don't hear too well.
aprilelection.com. And believe it or not, we got a sale yesterday. So,
Brad, do you know anybody that linked to aprilelection.com on their website yesterday?
Was it John Combest?
You know what? I went to johncombest.com yesterday and I saw an ad. I saw a direct link where folks can go. Also, I went to johncombest.com this morning. He was late to his radio show today. He couldn't dial in on Skype. If you go to johncombest.com today, you'll see a link where you can purchase a 15-second ad for $1. For the record, for anybody who's wondering, John is not plugging this based on commission. You can find You can purchase ads at any point for the April. It's aprilelection.com. Go to johncombest.com and find the link, or go directly to aprilelection.com. Be like the advertiser yesterday. Lock your ads in right now.
Right. And the crazy thing about that is, the question I get is, why are you doing this? And I say, because I'm tired of the stupid yard signs. You know, I mean, like, once again, I told them, maybe we talked about this, we're almost out of time today. I did this thing back in September where I was one of the guest speakers at what they called Candidate School, which was put on by the St. Charles County, a Republican committee. And I'm not making fun of all the other presenters. There was a lot of good information there, but they all talked about how do you get elected, yard signs and door knocking. And I got up, and the first thing I said, I was the last speaker of the day. You know, they had me last, of course. And I got up and I said, hey, how do you think Donald Trump got elected? I say his Twitter account. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the speakers even said, oh, you don't need a website if you're running for. I'm thinking, I don't understand that. I mean, if you're going to do anything in e-commerce or anything like that, I get that people sell. Matter of fact, there's a big pushback. The people are saying, well, if you ban TikTok, all these people are making money off of TikTok. There's people in Missouri that are running their business off of TikTok. I get it. But here's the deal. Take it from Brad, a guy who's been on the internet for 31 years now. Always have a website because you control it. The problem with TikTok, Facebook, any of the other social media accounts is all of a sudden one day you are kicking butt.
It's gone tomorrow.
And the next
demonetized.
Day,
folks can go to aprilelection.com, and Brad also gives out his number on the air, and that number is
314-280-8880. But one day you're kicking butt, and the next day your butt's getting kicked because A, you've either been demonetized like they do on YouTube all the time, or B, they've changed the algorithm and you're no longer getting any traffic.
Absolutely right.
If you have your own website, you can control that. You own it. I've heard a guy recently, a social media guy, say, when you are on social media, you're renting. When you have your own website, you're an owner. And to the point where I go, man, that's a great way to put it. And it really is true. Okay, we're done. We're actually, we're in overtime right now because we have to make up for John being late.
We have to make up for John. Brad, can you imagine how early I'm going to call you tomorrow and how irked you're going to be when I call you?
4 o'clock in the morning, it's going to ring, right?
See you guys tomorrow.
Okay, it is.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?